Welcome to Nobel Biz Webinars. Get ready for another session full of insightful information, tips, and knowledge shared by industry experts to help your contact center business grow.
Hello. Welcome to Nobel Biz Webinars. And today's topic is building contact centers that scale and succeed. We're going to be talking about culture, motivation, smart onboarding, and I am super excited. I got one of my favorite people in the world, Fatima, with me. Fatima brings years of experience, and I'll let her talk about it a little bit, inside, outside of contact centers, scaling other businesses. And really, when we decided to come up with this topic about how culture, motivation, and really scaling and having your contact center succeed, I couldn't think of a better partner. Fatima, she is currently the president of Voices, and it is a BPO in Canada. And Fatima, thank you for joining me today. I'd love for you to introduce yourself a little bit to the audience and tell us a little bit about your experience and how you got to where you're at now in the contact center space.
Thank you so much, Mike, and what a great introduction. And the sentiment is the same. You're one of my favorite people, and I'm really excited to be here and just share whatever it is that I've experienced. So I actually come from a healthcare industry. I studied to be a pharmacist, and I found a lot of parallels in pharmacy and just taking care of people versus other industries I've been in. I think I define myself a little bit as a serial entrepreneur. I love challenges. I love change. I love to see like how we can do more and do more. And the contact center, I have to say, which I stumbled across accidentally, because initially I was supposed to be business development,
Okay.
and we ended up in operations. Literally, my team, the team that was there, walked out. So that was it was quite a story. One that we'll share a different day.
Sure.
But the great thing about it is it actually landed me right in the middle of this. And coming from a healthcare background, like I actually didn't even know the lingo, the contact center lingo. And being submerged into this, and I'm one of those people who jumps feet first, and it's like in
Yes.
the deep end, apparently. I'm not even a strong swimmer, but we're like, okay, we'll figure this out. And what I quickly learned was that it is literally about people, which is the same across every industry. So once you kind of wrap your head around that, I think you can learn all the other stuff. The other stuff is very easy to learn. You can ask people, you can lean on people. I'm a big advocate of reaching out to people who are in the industry to just kind of understand things. But managing your people, managing that culture, that's, I think, the success behind every single business. Specifically, though, I've seen it in a big way for call center.
Yeah, I know when we talk about culture, we were actually speaking right before, and we were talking about how culture was always this soft piece that you would hear about when you were hiring somebody, right? Do they fit the
Yeah,
culture?
yeah.
And I've been in hundreds of contact centers, and I've probably seen hundreds of cultures throughout the past 30 years. What do you think makes the culture and the people, I guess you would say, that you're managing and you're inspiring? What type of culture are you trying to build in your contact center?
So our culture is driven by purpose. I think for every business, and this is what I've learned, is you have to have a solid purpose. And the purpose can't be money. I mean, everybody wants to make money. Nobody goes into business saying, I don't want to make money. I just want to be poor. Um, it is
Right.
about purpose, right? And also for me, my purpose is just doing better for people so that they could do better for themselves. You know what? I've been very lucky to have been supported by a lot of people, but I've always just seen that. Like, so that's kind of inherently who I am.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you bring that in, and you figure out how to strategically implement that, and then finding the leaders and the managers that kind of also align with that purpose is a
Hmm.
good thing. So one of my biggest questions for people when I first look at hiring in a management is tell me what you want to learn. Tell me your growth cycle. Tell me what's important to you. You can't answer with money. because that's an easy one. I know you want to make money. Let's put that
Right.
one aside. I was just like, but tell me what you want for yourself to evolve and grow. And so usually the right answer, which is what I'm looking for, they give it to me, is just, I just want to learn more. I just want to be able to experience more things and then be able to take from it. So this is like a growth mindset, right?
Mhm.
And that's what I love because that's kind of the ethos of who I am and what I try to implement within a business as well too. And I think that we discount that a little bit because you were right. You know, culture is a soft word because it's not defined with strategy, but it is the biggest strategy as far as I'm concerned. It's not tangible in the form of a KPI, but we learn to make it a KPI, right? And that's,
Yeah.
I think, the importance of it because when you talk about contracts, you talk about things, you know, we're always going through all of I like to separate it from IQ and EQ. IQ for me is like, you know, knowledge, theory, data. And the EQ is where the culture comes in. And at the end of the day, if you have everything, like let's say you have strategy, you know everything, you know list management, you know strategy, you know what numbers you have to hit, all that kind of fun stuff. Great. But how are you going to get these people to do that? Because their KPIs to them are just so that they can keep this job. And
Yeah.
if you can't get them to be invested in what they're learning and why it's good for them. So it's the acknowledgement, I think, it's accountability and also integrity. I think integrity is super critical. And your team has to see you kind of be that way as well too. So you have to mirror it because usually in a team like this or in an industry like this, like everyone can feel everyone, you know, like when
Yeah.
my managers show up on a bad day, whether they say it out loud or not, my agents can feel that. So I always teach my team, I'm like, they're mirroring what you feel. And even if you're not expressing it, they can feel it. So it's very important to kind of be in charge of that. So that's where the EQ comes in, right? And I think that that drives businesses.
Very interesting because I know a little bit about your business based off of what you've told me and what I've learned. And the challenge that I see in your specific contact center is you do sales. And
Yeah.
so when I talk to a lot of, or I've been in the industry 30 years and I've ran all types of call centers and cultures. And when somebody that's running like a customer service or more of an inbound call center tell me about their challenges, normally I'm like, okay, great, but you don't have to get sales to keep the lights on, right? And
Yeah.
so you have your own unique KPIs, you have your own unique things that you have to drive, but I'm driving a sales center. So my culture has to be different than yours
Yep.
because when I'm looking at buy-in, not only do I need to get buy-in for what you said is you got to have people that are open to learn. They got to learn these new skills that they probably never ever had, but they also have to be competitive and hungry because I run a sales center and that's unique. So how do you think you get the buy-in from people that have never done sales in their life? How do you get that buy-in from them to go get it and be competitive?
So, I mean, you're right. You know what? And we're doing outbound telesales, right?
Yep.
So that's the one. I mean, let's be real. I hang up on them too when they call me. I don't know if I should say that, but that's the
It's fine.
reality, right? And you have like literally 5 seconds to make an impression. And you know, with call center, we know that we're dealing with entry level, right? We're dealing with people who are young. Sometimes this is their first job. For me, my call center right now is a lot of foreign students as well too,
Mm.
right? So we support a lot of processes for them to get their, you know, permanent residency and stuff like that, which is great. So how are we investing in them, right? And I think that it's very important when we bring them on, we teach them that we've invested in them. We also tell them that we believed you were the right fit because we go through the interview process, right? There were people that we don't take on. So I'm like, we believed in you. We know that you have this raw talent. There's something
Yeah.
that you have that we want to help you curate. And I think putting parallels into their day to day, because A lot of times I think when people work for you, they're always thinking in the back of their mind, yeah, well, of course you want me to do that so you can make a lot of money, right?
Right.
I get that, and understanding their mindset, understanding how they're coming in, being really like honest about it, and then speaking to it. One of the big things that I've taught my team to do, and I love to do, is bringing the parallelism into like everyday life. I said, look, you're coming here, and what I'm going to teach you is how to be able to talk to anyone. The other thing I'm going to teach you is because people say no, and that's just the way it goes. You're going to hear a lot more no's in your life than you will yes. And how do you get through that? I'm like, life requires grit. Every business, every job, every relationship, personal, professional, it requires grit. Nothing is perfect. We kind of blow up this idea of life has to be fair. It's not a thing,
Right.
right? And just align it where it's something that resonates with them in something they've already experienced. And usually it's the emotion part. The toughest part about outbound sales is getting hung up on, and people saying no. And you've called me before. And how do you keep their level of, excitement and motivation up enough for them to still continue, because they've got to dial for 8 hours, right? And in
Yeah.
8 hours, and let's say they're taking 300 calls, and then like 275 are saying no or hanging up or whatever, right? Then I have to teach them how to create the opportunity. But the most important is teaching them not to give up, right?
Yeah.
And that's where the culture is, because reality is that's the reality of what we are. So we say it like it is. We're very, very honest in the way that we are like, okay, these are going to be your challenges. I know what they're going to point to when they don't do well. They point to the list, they point to
Yeah.
their customer. And I was just like, listen, those are variables you have no control over. These are the variables you do have control over. And I asked them the question. So do you want to grow? Do you want to, I know you might not be here with me for life, but do you want me to teach you how to get the job that you dream of? And
Sure.
everybody's saying yes, right? Do you want me to help you how to manage like the no's in your life? Do you want me to help you grow so that you can change this way of thinking? Do you want a life that's more fulfilling? Because it's not for money. Like there's so
Yeah.
many people, right? Like we always say, right? When you die, it's not about how much money you have, it's about the
Sure.
relationships you have. So we're
Yeah.
invested. We're invested in them as individuals. We're invested in understanding and the emotions that they go through because of what they're experiencing. And then we speak to it, and then we teach them how to manage that, right? So it's teaching them the emotional intelligence, because we don't have that, right? We don't have that in our lives. We don't learn that in school. We
Yeah.
just, we live in a world that's very driven by KPIs, good grades, right degree, right college, all that kind of stuff, right? But understanding where your agent comes from, and that automatically drives sales. Like we've been doing this for like 7 years, and we're talking like we do like 10,000 hours of outbound dialing,
Yeah.
and we're getting 2 to 3,000 sales a month for our clients. And we have to do that constantly and consistently. And we're calling their same customers every 90 days.
Yep.
So but like, let's be real. How are we connecting? If somebody, when they called me, had a different conversation, I wouldn't hang up on them,
Right.
right? We all know why we hang up on telemarketers.
Sure.
So now use that knowledge as well too. And it kind of opens their worlds up.
Yeah.
It gets them invested. It gets them invested because they're coming and learning something different. When you kind of connect things that are not just apparent to your team, they get excited, and they want to
Yeah.
come.
I think what's interesting is you kind of talking about the very first thing you said is what we help them with, right? We help
Yeah.
them become residents. We're investing in them.
Yeah.
So it's about the mission, right? So
Yeah.
in my mind, whenever you're doing, and I come from kind of the outbound sales world, so anytime you get such a high percentage of no's and what we call refusals in the industry, right?
Yeah.
And you have to rebuttal. So it's not like you can just say, oh, they said no, so thanks, have a good day. And I'm just finding the people that
Yeah.
will say yes. No,
Yeah.
you have to overcome those objections, right?
Absolutely.
And then the other thing you said that's very key is you're talking about how you can relate overcoming those objections of what they're learning today and also relate that to real life,
Yeah.
right? So they're going to be in positions. They're going to go apply for another job. They're going to be told no. I always used to joke. I said, if I didn't learn how to rebuttal, I probably wouldn't have 4 kids and 2 grandkids right now
It's true.
because I had to overcome the objections. And so
So
it's
true.
one of those things where you don't know at the time, but having that skill set of being able to not take no for an answer, which, some people struggle with, but it's true because most people's natural reaction, especially as parents, is no, right? First thing we say is no, sorry. And then they're like, well, and then they can
Yeah.
rebuttal. The,
Yeah.
the kids that learn those skill sets early on are really good at that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so it's interesting because I like how you tie what's in it for them,
Yeah.
right? And why these skill sets are going to be beneficial to them. And they're not just sitting there taking no after no and there's no mission.
Yeah.
And that's what I used to always call it, the mission. What's the mission? What's in it for them, the with them, before what's in it for me as a company or me as an owner? And it's
Yeah.
important because I like how you kind of connected those dots of we start with how we can help them become residents. Then we start with how do we relate that to their normal life and the skills that they're going to learn. So
Yeah.
I think it's awesome. I think it really
Appreciate it.
teaches how the culture is more than them just coming in and getting sales.
Yeah. And look, we obviously, you know what, we have to keep a buzz. So we do the prizes and we do all of that. And I'm going to be
Yeah.
honest, it's fun. It's fun for us. But there's only so much you could throw at people, right? Like, I mean, then you're just going to come into this cycle of, okay, I've got to give them more commissions. Like we do things like Power Hour, and we have competitions through the month, and we've actually broken down weekly competitions, and we come up with like, different things to like every Friday. This month, every Friday we have a
Yeah.
day. Last Friday was pajama day.
You got to break the
You know,
monotony, right?
you do, right? You have to create that fun but like you can't then you're just like a circus act if
That
that's all
can't be
you're
the only
jumping.
thing. You're
That
right.
can't be it. That's kind of like the toppings, like that's the sprinkles on top, which makes it a little bit more fun even for my team. So then they show
Yeah.
up. You're already setting them to show up in a positive way when you give them something that they can enjoy. And for whatever reason, people like to come to work in their pajamas. I don't understand it, but
Right.
it works for them, so that's fine, right?
So let me
Um,
ask you this. There's a natural challenge that I see with managing people nowadays
yeah.
than it was when I first walked into a call center in 1996, right? And let me explain
Absolutely.
why. I was very money motivated. I could care less about the mission. I wanted to make money because I thought in my mind, this isn't going to be my career. Now it's funny because it
Look at you
has,
now.
but at the time, my generation, and we're similar in age, our generation was different. We came in, we did a job, we completed the task. We, even if we didn't like it, we dug in and made it successful. But my kids, right? I have 26, I have 22, I have 18, and then I have
Wowzers.
younger. My kids can't be managed that way. They're not
Yeah.
built like that. So, what is the challenge of the people coming into the call center? How do you motivate them besides just we're going to give you money, you're going to make money, let's go.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a great question. And the reality is, I actually see some that are money motivated, very few. There's like
Yeah.
two or three, right? Let's say my team of 55, there's two or three that are money motivated. But the money motivators on a tough day need somebody to kind of come and say, like, hey, like, what? Like today you've decided you're off, and that just clicks them on. So
Right.
knowing your team, right? But let me ask you this question for a second.
Sure.
Today, are you just money motivated?
Yeah.
No. So I think
You
that the
evolve.
money, right? You evolve. And so I think that in a way, as much as this younger generation, and I have two of my own,
Yeah.
and as much as they are very different than we are, they're actually a little bit smarter in the sense where, and it makes it easier as a business owner, because if it's not just money motivated and there is the other part, which is what we talk about, right? How does this evolve you in a life skill? My biggest thing is this notion of work-life balance. There's so
Mm.
much stuff out there, I think, in this generation that is focused on that. So let's redefine things. I'm notorious for redefining terms. You know, this
Hmm.
notion of fear, this notion of vulnerability. I take vulnerability and I'm like, it's strength. You tell me where you're vulnerable. I'll help you build that because obviously I'll learn it. Like, you're going to find it to be a strength.
Right.
This notion of work-life balance, and I kind of laugh at that because the reality is, okay, but like, what do you want to achieve, right?
Yeah.
And
You just want time off, or what are we talking about?
right. I was just like, and you guys actually have a better schedule than most people I know. Like everybody I talk to across all industries. They're like, what? Like, wait, you work like 2 Saturdays a month and people have off and you have all the long weekends and you have all of this. I'm like, and then you're done. Like literally, you can clock in, clock out, and you're done. There aren't very many jobs like that, right? Um, but teaching them what's work-life balance. It's just managing stress. So I think they have a big aversion to stress, but I believe, my theory is stress is self-induced.
Right.
Um, and the reality is the only way you can learn how to manage stress is if you face stress. So you have to feel the stress to know what to do with it. So we're invested in teaching them that. And the funny thing is, because that's the one biggest thing, you know, people are like, it's so stressful. I can't handle this. I can't handle this. And I'm like, I hear you. I see you. Rather than just saying, well, then this is not for you. And sometimes it's not. We have to be able to identify where, you know, maybe this is not the right fit. But I'm going to be honest, I see that in like maybe 5% of the people who walk through my door. I don't see that anymore. It's just that they don't know how to. I think that's the biggest thing. So this is where the culture comes in. We're invested in teaching you how to get your metrics, how to speak to people better, how to overcome your rebuttals, how to manage your stress, and it's through support. It's also being very honest. We can't pretend. I'm a
Yeah.
firm believer of we cannot pretend that this isn't what it is. And when they always talk to me about customers saying no and, you know, a certain list being a certain way, because everybody likes it. Everybody likes to make the issue an external issue. And the one thing I always say, and my team takes it, they do, and I'm very appreciative, is I said, so listen, we have to accept that we are the problem, but we are also the solution. And the reality is that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. Because imagine that the solution was outside of us. We would
Right.
have no control over it, but we absolutely do. And you know what? It's also a guiding factor for me as far as an executive, you know, running a business. I have to always see when something's not going right. I'm like, I'm the problem, but I'm the solution. So I'm managing my team like this, but it's not working for whatever reason. So I have to look at how do I do it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Um,
So
and
if
I tell
money's
them that.
not, if you had to say what are the other top two motivators of your team, and you can't say money, what are the top two, would you say?
Um, I feel like growth, like
Okay.
personal growth.
They want to
Oh
expand their
yeah,
career, they want to
yeah.
learn.
But I think their own personal growth. It's funny. I mean, you know what? Like I think their own personal growth, how they evolve as a human, and how they're able to manage challenges, and how they're able to overcome these challenges. So the personal growth, I think, is super, super important, and also showing them how to evolve, giving them the tools to manage challenges is more important than money for them. My team will say to me, because you know what, we're very SPH driven, you know, sales per hour
Yep.
driven. And
Yep.
sometimes because of list integrity, et cetera, they'll make a sale, but then we'll be able to, once we QA it, we'll find out that, you know, the customer already had this product. There was no way for my agent to know that.
Right.
So that sale still counts towards their SPH. They don't get a commission
Mm.
for it. And they'll say to me, like, but I didn't know. And I'm like, yeah, it counts towards your SPH. Like, okay. They just love having their strong performance more than the commission tied to it, which is
Gotcha.
incredible, right? So that's how I know it's working.
So let's say, kind of a little bit, shift gears a little bit, but I kind of want to talk about that employee and their culture in the first 30 days.
Okay.
So I'm sure you get people that come in that aren't the right culture.
No.
They're
Yeah.
just not going to fit in. I'm sure that your team can identify those people quickly.
Yeah.
But why do you think, and this has been this way the whole time I've been in call centers, why do you think that 30-day, kind of that first 30 days kind of make or break an agent?
So I think it's more because of the nature of the business more than the person itself, right? Like at the end of the day, we're in an environment where you're calling somebody. Imagine calling somebody for like calling people for 8 hours straight and getting that many no's. Like we have to accept the fact that it's a
I
tough
did it.
space to
I
be,
know.
right? Right. And then every single person that has been one of my top sellers, and I like to promote internally. So we have organic growth, which I love, but
Yeah.
every single one of them, and they've been great. Like there have been people who hit sales like 1.0 SPH, right? And then they're like now my either my SME or my team leaders. They've said the first 3 weeks, at the third week, I was like, nah, I'm done for. They're gonna fire me any day. And they're like, and
Yeah.
I said, but you weren't fired, right? So understanding and knowing from a management perspective, seeing people grow, seeing people change. It's not always going to translate into sale. It's not,
Yeah.
but you have to be able to monitor them and see that they're taking the feedback. Like I said, listen, you are the problem, but you are the solution. So if this is a problem, I accept. I accept this is a problem. If you happen to naturally be a great salesperson, kudos to me. Like that's a bonus for us as an
Yeah.
organization. But it's few and far in between that come in and are able to do that right off the bat, right?
Yeah.
And to be fair, I feel like that happens over time as we age. It's a matter of confidence, right? Being able to go into something that's so unknown and then jump into it and really be able to embrace it, not having the fear of the unknown. So that's, I think, across every industry. And given that it's entry level and given just the nature of call center, we have to accept that there is going to be this learning curve. My team, they know I'm notorious for this. I'm like, but I want it yesterday. And I do. I want it yesterday. I don't want that learning curve to be a full month. I want it to be shorter.
Right.
I'm going to say we usually get a 3 week learning curve,
Okay.
which is great. But we have the right tools to support them. And it's a matter of balancing the culture, the motivation, the investments that you feel that I'm invested in you, along with then obviously the data, right? Whether it be your SPH, whether it be like, here's what you're doing, listening to their calls, the coaching. And my team has to show me that they've coached them. So they have to be able to come back and logically tell me why this person isn't the right fit. I need the data. I have the emotion, but I need the data to support this, right? And I think that's why it is. And it's tough though. We have to accept that it's not an easy job. And we have to accept that they actually deal with a lot of emotional hurdles
Yeah.
when they're dealing with that, because we see it fluctuate. If they've gotten a call in that first quarter, if they've gotten a sale in that first quarter, chances are you don't even have to listen to that agent. They're good for the day.
It's very
Um,
emotional.
it is, right? And to be fair, think about it. Isn't it all very emotional? And the
Hmm.
more we're able to manage our emotions and not react versus respond. So that's something that I teach my team a lot. And it's all from my own personal growth. So this is what I feel, and this comes from healthcare, see one, what is it? See one, do one, teach one. That's what they teach in
Hmm.
medical school, right? So you see it, then you do it, and then you teach it to your team. And then
That's
they
the
kind of
that's
understand.
I always seen the challenge, and this kind of gets into the scaling part of this, is the challenge is I can teach and train and really hold accountable, let's say 20 people, right? Me
Yeah,
personally.
yeah,
The challenge is well, how do you surround yourself with leaders that will also help you scale the same culture? Because they got to be teaching from the same playbook. If
right.
they're not, then you'll have a successful team, you'll have an unsuccessful team, and then and so you can't really scale that. So,
Yeah.
what do you think helps your environment to scale not only the good agents, but really scale the culture in general with your entire call center?
So it goes back to see one, do one, teach one, right? So if I'm
Yeah.
teaching this, and that's why my growth is organic, I've hired people outside. It hasn't worked. And that doesn't mean I'm completely averted to it by any means whatsoever. But when we're talking about actually running operations,
Yeah.
business development, I can hire from outside, no problem, because they're not touching my culture and my operations. Operations, I think it's super important to grow organically. That's what I've seen work best for me, and I've tried the other ways. Because if we have been a part of that journey and they've embraced our messaging, so
Yeah.
when you bring them forward, they're embracing that messaging and now they're going to put it out there as well too. And then eventually what happens is when I bring somebody new, I then have them touch base and mentor. I'm trying to grow. I call them my minions. I don't know if that's appropriate, but to be fair, and they love it. And I'm very appreciative of that as well too. But that's it, like-minded people, and that's the
Yep.
importance. Anyone can learn the data portion. I'm a perfect example of that. I came from healthcare. I knew nothing about call center. I didn't even know the terminology. I remember my first meeting, I was like Googling under the boardroom desk. Like, I'm like, what are they talking about? And
Right.
it was a very vulnerable position for me, to
Mm.
be fair, right? And then I kind of shifted because that's where my mind went. I'm like, oh crap, what am I doing here? Right? That was literally my first thought. And then I thought, hold on a second. I'm like, but if any of these guys were thrown into the pharmacy and we started talking, they wouldn't know either. So, like, I know I can learn. I know
Yeah.
I can absorb the information, and absorbing information. I feel like once you have people who are aligned with you on that emotional intelligence, that culture, that pathway, and they also are of the same mindset and the same personality, you can teach them the data and how
Makes
to.
sense.
Because right? Like, that's actually easy. We can create spreadsheets to tell people how to do all the stuff. How do you manage this? How do you
Yeah.
manage a list? How do I teach you the technology? We got you. I have people like you who'll do it, right?
Yeah.
But you have to, I think, hire those that align with your purpose. That's why the purpose is so important.
Yeah.
And they have to be inspired by it.
I also think it's important. I know you brought up technology for a second. I think having the technology that can support the culture and the
Absolutely.
scalability is important, especially, I mean, you guys do an outbound, right? So you're
Yeah,
dialing thousands of people. You're
it's
trying to
craziness.
get agents to follow scripts. You're trying to get people to pick up the phone. And so the technology isn't the same. You're not just picking up the phone, dialing somebody, and they're just going to say hello.
Yeah,
Like, the challenge is just getting them to answer.
yeah,
And then when they do answer, it's showtime,
yep,
right? And
yeah.
so, how has technology either been a hindrance or a kind of a way to help scale your culture and your call center?
Technology, I swear to God, kills me. I'm not gonna lie. That it's funny. That is, and it's. I feel like it's the universe. I'm like, listen, I will do the people part. Leave the technology. I would always kind of be like, somebody else take care of this. And then you know what? Like, the way of life is like, you got to move towards the things that make you uncomfortable and that you don't necessarily want to understand that well. So we had to. And I mean, a dialer is a dialer, but it's not. I learned that
Right.
too. It's kind of funny, right? I'm like, I mean, you're just replicating things, but it's not true. Obviously, ensuring that telecom is the biggest issue for us. I'm not gonna lie. Like, when you
Yeah.
have the carriers and everything, and when carriers go sideways and like your support team does nothing to help you. I've had this happen where data centers go down. I've lost days of dialing, and I'm like, I don't think you understand. Like, that's my revenue.
Yeah.
And one day, 2 days of revenue. So the trickle down effect of that is not even just my revenue, right? I'm not hitting my hours. I'm not hitting the sales that my client wants me to hit because I'm their volume, right? Like, they rely on me. And now I'm saying to them that you can't. They
Yeah.
understand it's the technology. But at the same time, who cares? Like, who cares, right? Like, I need my deliverable as well too. So I think the telecom piece is super, super critical. That was super important. I think the pieces of the dialer are fine. I mean, for the most part, not all of them are built the same, to be fair. It has to
Yeah.
be very user friendly. And especially with outbound, our inbound team, they're within our client system for the most part. So it's just a matter of connecting calls sometimes.
Sure.
The reporting piece of it, it's funny. I feel like my reporting is very basic, but somehow or another, people have not been able to deliver, and I didn't understand that. My reporting doesn't come from me; it's what my client wants. So I have to deliver that, no matter what,
Yeah.
because it's not a negotiable. But the telecom piece has been the hardest part, and then also making sure it's user friendly and being able to bring out and have my team have the tools to see the data part. So list management and contact rates and things along those lines. A lot of other vendors, I've had to do add-ons,
Mm.
to be able to see like list penetration management, like contact rates, things like that. Like, it's very bizarre to me. The one thing I have to
Right.
say about your team, though, like, at Noble Biz, and we switched over, is that it's very driven, understanding. And I think that comes from the fact that all of you guys have had so many different areas in contact center, from being an agent to owning one to that. So
Yeah.
you understood all of that. And I think that's super critical. But then it also comes down to the people,
Yeah.
bottom line, because we can be somewhat flexible with what we want. I mean, I might have had it this way with one technology vendor, and I might have to adjust it a little bit, but that's okay. I'm flexible with that. But then the people, what are you going to do when I'm down? Like, where are you going to show up? Because technology is technology. It's going to break at some point in time, right? There are going to be
Yeah.
challenges. But I'm going to say this because we were talking about stuff, and I before this, recording. The one thing that you guys did is you supported my culture. So, when we kind of came to a wall and my team was a little bit stuck and we were like, okay, are we missing something? I remember you, and there was Josh as well too. You guys got on 2, 3 calls with us and we went through. I'm like, okay, let's leverage your knowledge in call center because I am a firm believer of ask questions. What did I miss?
Yeah.
Right. And we went through, okay, agent management, list management. What are these things? How do we do this? And you guys walked us through all of that. And to be fair, you know what? We were doing that already.
Hmm.
And so it gave my existing management team the confidence of, okay, we're doing all of it. But coming out of that, what we realized that we didn't have in place, because we had all the infrastructure
Hmm.
and we had all these conversations around list management, but we didn't create this infrastructure around agent management. So we kind of took agent management and built out strategies. I'm like, okay, what works? And it's funny, you should see this spreadsheet. It's hysterical. But it's like, okay, give them a post-it to tell them how far they are from their sales target. And that motivates people. They want to
Yeah.
know. They want to know. So we literally created a spreadsheet around agent management, culture, more about the emotional intelligence around it versus this, right? Because we get lost in that because we think that's where it is. And so that's what you guys brought. That was
Yeah.
nothing like anybody else did. And that makes us feel, again, you're invested with us. You're here to see us succeed. And that's exactly what we talked about. That's a culture. That's important. It's important with our clients too. If we're not the right fit, then if my client doesn't feel like we're the right fit, because we're going to have bad days, right? But how are we
Yeah.
going to handle those bad days? That's why I think
I
that
try to,
that piece is so much bigger.
I tell people, they say it all the time when they say, look for a partner, not a vendor. But
Yeah,
what you just laid out is a partner, somebody that will
yeah,
invest even outside of the SOW, outside the statement of
absolutely.
work that they're
Yeah,
doing, outside that, and vice versa.
yeah,
So I may come to you and your team and say, hey, we're thinking about building X, Y, and Z. How would you utilize it? How would you do that? So
yeah,
that's a partnership, having that back and forth and really going beyond the call of duty to make sure that you're a good partner.
absolutely.
And I think that's the secret to all this. And I think to summarize our webinar today is I think the biggest thing that and this is in the world of AI. Remember, AI is saving
Yeah,
everybody. It's going to fix the world. It's going to change everything. But in the world of AI, we're talking about people,
people.
right? And we're talking about culture and experience and mission and how to motivate. And it's all around people.
It is.
It's picking the right technology vendor because of the people. And
Yeah,
so I think people lose sight of managing people. And, I always used to tell people all KPIs are behaviors. That's all it is. It's
yep,
people and behaviors, and that drives to a KPI. So if you manage behavior, it'll fix your numbers. You can't just
absolutely.
manage numbers.
Yep.
And so that's what I really appreciate. What you guys do a little different is you're not just the stick. You're not just the stick. You're not just the
No.
stick. And a lot of outbound performance call centers are just, if you don't hit the numbers, you're fired. If you don't, da da da. And you
Yeah,
guys come at it with a little bit more of the carrot or maybe the cupcake, right? And so
absolutely. And the
I think
stick
that's
doesn't
big.
have to be so hard either. Like we say hard things, right, in the delivery. But I agree 100%. And, I hope that this webinar
Yep.
um, helps open up the conversation because we all say culture, we all say motivation. We know that. We know when we're doing a business pitch, we know when we're trying to get a client. We all say it. for us, here's how that translates. And I said, and the proof is in the pudding, right? Like,
Yeah.
take this soft word, but make it a hard deliverable. And I'm going to show you how this is such a hard deliverable. And we say really tough things to our team, but at the end of the day, they also accept it, right? They accept it because they understand that it's part of their growth and they see it. And then we make sure we go back and reinforce that.
Yep.
And how do you drive business? People,
Yep.
right?
Last thing, if people want to get a hold of you, they would love to work with your BPO and Voices because you guys are people first. How can they get a hold of you, Fatima?
So I have my email. So it's my name, Fatima at voices.com, because I always kind of like to be frontline when I meet with new people. So if you do, and I hope you do, that's how you get in touch with us. We have our website as well too. But the best way is just my direct email. And you know what? We are really all about trying to help people end up getting the deliverables that we want. We're good at it. We know how to do it. And you'll be content, like you'll be happy. I think the results are there.
I would say the hardest thing for vendors is to find contact centers that care, that can hit performance, takes care of their customers. And I think you guys have a great blend of that. So any of my audience, any of my people that are listening to this webinar, you would be amazed and you should beg for them to take your word. So
You're so kind. I appreciate that.
again,
so
I
much,
appreciate
Mike.
it. Thanks for everybody joining today. Thank you, Fatima. We'll do it again.
Thanks, Mike. It's been fun.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.